Fireworks celebrating the red, white, and blue as the campaign fireworks are just getting started. Welcome, everyone. I'm Charles Payne in for Neil Cavuto, and this is a special July 4th edition of Your World. And while Americans celebrate Independence Day with family, friends, and a whole lot of travel, there's a whole lot going on with the 2024 presidential race. There's little to no chance former President Trump will be on trial ahead of the election. And no question, President Joe Biden underperformed at the debate just 1 week ago. In the aftermath of the debate, new polling shows Trump edging ahead of the current president. As we keep rolling into summer, how do we see this race shaking out? Well, let's get the read from GOP fundraiser Noelle Nikpour and Democratic strategist Kristen Hawn. Noelle, I'll start with you. It's been certainly an eventful week, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah, Charles, it certainly has. And you know what? With all the trial things out of the way and all the legality stuff, at least right now, out of the way, this will assure Donald Trump to focus on one thing and one thing only, and that is campaigning. He's really good at it, and I think that now it's going to be full throttle. You're going to see more money being raised. You're going to see more events. You're going to see a lot more rallies, and you're going to see him hone in on traditionally blue states, hoping that he can even widen that gap even more and really pull ahead, full steam ahead, past Biden right now.
Kristen, earlier in the week, we heard Karine Jean-Pierre suggest that President Biden will make more appearances. He'll make himself more available and maybe put himself in positions where he's somewhat vulnerable. And that would, of course, mean not reading on a teleprompter, but taking questions from folks. Is that sort of the make or break part of this campaign right now?
I mean, I think there are a lot of things going on with the campaign right now. He does have an unprecedented operation, but I will say, yes, he needs to go on air, talk to people like yourselves who are asking him questions, not from a teleprompter, the way he does things best, and demonstrate to the American people like he's picking himself back up.
And the aftermath of that, Democrats, Kristen, pushing back, some even coming out publicly saying we can't win with President Biden at the top of the ticket. There's also scuttlebutt about moving the convention even sooner, just to solidify that, again, that President Biden is the choice of the party. What will it take for those issues to fade away? Time or anything else?
And I think that the convention was, in my opinion, too late anyway in the mid-August. But I think, you've had like a few House members like Lloyd Doggett, who's only a few years younger than the president anyway, so I thought that was very interesting. But you've also seen, the leaders of the party, including, Hakeem Jeffries, Nancy Pelosi, who have come out and been supportive of the president. He gave, a rallying speech the day after the debate. So, I think it's going to take all of these things. I mean, he needs to be out there. He needs to be talking to people. I think he will, doing interviews. And demonstrating to the people that he's the best person to lead the country for the next 4 years.
Noelle, you're the superstar fundraiser. President Biden pulled in a lot of money after the debate. Many folks said that was already baked into the cake. But the big news going into the debate was just how much money, particularly grassroots money, former President Trump has raised.
Oh, yes. And that's because he's got momentum behind his back. And if you'll look closely, there's a lot of small donors, Charles, that are giving to former President Trump. And those donors signify usually a vote, because somebody that's giving little bits of cash usually is going to follow that up with a vote, compared to, the big guys out there giving big checks to super PACs and so forth. When you see that small donor and you see an uptick in campaign fundraising with small donors, that usually signals voters and passion. And President Trump definitely has the momentum and the passion behind his campaign.
Let me real quick, Noelle, I think lost in all of the, post-debate headlines was the performance of President Trump. Were you surprised, can I even say maybe pleasantly surprised at the way he handled that debate? He didn't take the bait. He seemed presidential. He seemed above a lot of the things that he was accused of he was going to do. Actually, some of these insults were hurled at him. How surprising was that, and how much will that help him in his effort to become president?
I think it showed that he can contain himself, and I think it also showed a little bit of maturity also the sheer fact that, President Biden, you could see the stumbles and the gaps, and I mean, it was pretty sad. So I think that what President Trump did, by not, really punching him too much because he was already, doing it to himself, I think really showed Americans that Donald Trump can be a little bit more presidential, can be a little bit more reserved, all the while giving facts and giving some really good pointers on how he compares to President Biden, what he'll do, and what it was like under Trump's administration when he was governing versus what it's going on with Biden.
Yeah, well, hey, let's leave it there, ladies. Thank you both very much. Happy 4th of July.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.